What's up, YouTube? It is day 9 of my 30-day challenge, posting every day here on YouTube. And today we're talking about yoga for strength training. This applies to powerlifters, to weightlifters, to if you're just a general strength enthusiast. This applies to everybody. And also, if you don't strength train and you do yoga and you're wondering, maybe you should start strength training. So the first thing that I really want to cover, so this was asked by a guy named Carson on Twitter, which, by the way, if you want me to answer your questions, tweet at me at SyattFitness, SYATT Fitness, and I'm going to go through as many questions as I can throughout this 30-day challenge. But Carson was like, hey man, what are your thoughts on yoga during strength training? I really like to know. And per usual, it's always a black and white issue. It's not like a definitively yes, definitively no. The first thing I want to dispel immediately is the idea that yoga does not belong in any strength training program. That's ridiculous to say that there's no, and this is like, I've seen it dissipate over the years, but when I really was getting into powerlifting during when geared powerlifting was everything, it was hardcore powerlifting. A lot of the hardcore powerlifters were like, yoga's stupid, it's ridiculous, don't do it, blah, 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 pussies, da, 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 it's whatever. It's like a lot of like dogmatic macho bullshit. Yoga is totally fine. That being said, if your goal is pure strength, especially like elite high level strength, you only have X amount of training time in a week. Everybody only has amount. So then it becomes, okay, how much yoga should you be doing if your goal is, we'll call it chin-ups. Let's say you're just you just want to do 10 chin-ups, right? And you haven't been able to do that yet. If you're spending the majority of your training time doing yoga, but your goal is chin-ups, that's an issue. Or if your goal is to deadlift like 3 times your body weight and the majority of your training is yoga, that's an issue. So it's not that it's inherently good for you or inherently bad for you. It's more like, okay, we need to figure out how much do you need as an individual and what kind of yoga, when, and how much. I think I already said how much, but basically figuring out the specifics. One of my guiding lights as a coach in fitness, but also just in life in general, has been most people, they love what they're good at and they hate what they suck at, right? It's just people love what they're good at and they hate what they suck at. It's normal. Like, if you suck at something, you're not going to want to do it over and over and over again because, like, you'd rather do something that you're naturally good at. So the flip side of that, the funny part of that is usually, especially in fitness and in strength training, if you suck at something, odds are that's what you need to be doing. So my example here is, generally speaking, men are way less flexible and mobile than women. Huge generalization, but it's generally speaking that's accurate. Men tend to have less flexibility, less mobility, and women tend to have more mobility, more flexibility. So generally speaking, women will gravitate towards more yoga style training on a population basis. That's what they're really good at. And men will gravitate more towards the strength training, the lifting room. That's what they're generally naturally good at. Men tend to have a propensity to be stronger, build muscle more easily. So we see that just in general. More women will gravitate towards yoga, more men will gravitate towards strength training, and what we actually need is a switch where men, generally speaking, need to be more gravitating towards yoga, doing more of that in their training, and women need to be getting in the gym more, lifting fucking heavy weight. That's just like, if we saw that switch more, we'd see a lot less injuries on both sides, getting men more flexible, getting people who need it more flexible, people who need more mobility, more flexibility, more flexible, and people who need more strength and stability, getting them in the strength room, getting them lifting more. See a lot less injuries. We'd see a lot less back injuries, we'd see a lot less knee injuries, a lot less hip injuries. I guarantee over time as people age, we'd see a lot less hip replacements, knee replacements, all those things for both people, because it's not just a lack of mobility that causes that. Sometimes a lack of stability will very easily lead to knee issues, hip issues, back issues, shoulder issues all the time. If you can't stabilize, then you're setting yourself up for injury. So getting off on a huge tangent, but point being, if you suck at mobility and flexibility and all you do is just keep hammering home strength, you're fucking yourself over. You need to add more mobility, flexibility style training into your routine. That doesn't mean, and this is getting into the how much and the when, you don't need to go to an hour-long yoga class 5 times a week. You don't need that. You don't need to go to a yoga class. You don't need to do a hot yoga class, a 90-minute Bikram yoga class. What it could mean is simply adding in 3 to 5 mobility movements in your warm-up of your strength training that is yoga based. A lot of my warm-ups, especially for my inner circle, are based around yoga movements, but they're not going to yoga classes for the inner circle. They're doing yoga-based movements as part of their warm-up. A lot of times we'll do it during supersets as well, just as active recovery. They might do a set of deadlifts followed by a walking Spider-Man with an overhead reach, which is based in the root of yoga. A yoga plex, which is like, shit, I don't have anything to show you right now. Yeah, I'm gonna find something. I'll take you on a little walk. I'm outside right now. It's like 2 in the morning in Israel because I'm jet lagged. Let's see. By the way, if you're ever not sure how to film yourself doing something in the gym, I just picked up a trash bin and I put it on the table, and now I'm gonna film myself doing an exercise. So if you don't have someone to film you, that you don't have an excuse, just prop it up on a bench or something. But you can do this. This is a yoga plex. You're here, step back, up and around, boom. This is yoga, everybody. This is not like a big fucking deal. So for everyone who's like, no, yoga's ridiculous and you shouldn't do it, listen, you do this in between a couple sets of bench press, a couple sets of deadlifts, a couple sets of chin-ups. Like, all you're doing is promoting good mobility and flexibility, and it's yoga. So I think some people, they might just need a definition change of what yoga is and realize, listen, you don't have to go drive 20 minutes to your local yoga studio and sign up for 5 classes a week. You could just start adding it a little bit into your warm-ups, into your active recovery in between sets, and you're good to go. So I have a couple things I want to say, but generally speaking, yoga's great. I think that especially for the people who have focused so much on strength training and need more mobility and flexibility, it would be very worthwhile to start adding more yoga into your routine. Going on the flip side, the people who have spent more of their life doing flexibility and mobility style training, the people who are already very, very flexible, you need to spend less time doing that and more time lifting some heavy fucking weight. And generally speaking, this tends to be more women, the people who are afraid to get in the gym, who are hesitant to get in the gym, who just aren't getting in the gym or lifting or even doing it at home. You don't have to be in the gym, but for me, most of my inner circle members, most of my clients, most people I work with are women. It's about like a 60-40 split, 60% women, 40% men. And it's been a huge passion of mine to get women in the gym and lifting heavy fucking weight. And by the way, some people are like, well, how much is heavy weight? You don't have to squat 1,000 pounds. Heavy weight is all relative. Maybe if you're 5'2" and 100 pounds, heavy weight is like 100 pounds, like doing a 100-pound deadlift, 125, 135 pound deadlift. Could be doing like 25-pound bench press in each hand, dumbbell bench press, doing chin-ups. Like, heavy does not mean like world record powerlifter. It doesn't mean like getting big and bulky. It just means lifting in a way that challenges you in a lower rep range, in a 5, 6, 7, 8 rep range, rather than doing like the long stretching, rather than doing like the 20 repetitions. I'd like to get you lifting some fucking weight that's difficult for 5, 6, 7, 8 reps so you can get stronger, more stable, instead of just doing what you're already really good at and just not getting any better. One of my all-time favorite quotes from Louis Simmons: "You're only as strong as your weakest link." I'm going to say that again because I really want that to settle in. You're only as strong as your weakest link. And if you are tremendously mobile, tremendously flexible, you can put on you're the best one in your yoga class. You go to the yoga class, you're in the front of the room, you're like so stoked because everyone looks up to you and asks you questions, but you're nervous to go in the strength room, you're nervous to pick up some heavy weights. You gotta fucking put the ego aside and go lift some fucking heavy weights, because here's the thing, maybe right now it's more comfortable to of course it's more comfortable to be like the star. It's always harder to put your ego aside and go and do something that you're not naturally good at, do something that you might not have any knowledge on, but you're always better for it, and you never regret doing something that that like could make you better. You never regret it. You will always regret you when you're 90 years old. And this is sort of like the one thing I always go back to. When you're 90 years old, if all you've done thus far is yoga, or mostly yoga, and haven't done much strength training, you're not going to look back and say like, man, I really regret going in that gym one time and giving it my all and trying to lift weights. But you will look back and say, shit, I can't believe that I let the fear of not being good at something, or the fear of like someone like being a dick to me in the gym, or people judging me in the gym, I can't believe I let that fear prevent me from doing it. You'll always regret it. Same thing on the other side. Like people who are not really mobile or flexible, they've only done strength training. You will not regret being like, wow, I really regret adding in those 3 yoga-based movements in my fucking warm-up. And you definitely will regret being like, when you throw your back out, when you can barely move, because as you get older, it gets harder. It becomes more difficult. Start now when you can. I don't care if you're 60 years old. It's better than trying to start when you're 75 or 80. Start now, no matter what. You'll look back when at some point when you're 90 and be like, shit, I can't believe I didn't just fucking do 1.5 minutes extra of mobility work every day. Like, what the fuck? I was texting in between sets and taking selfies in the mirror, but I couldn't have done fucking 75 seconds of mobility work every day because it was yoga or whatever, because I'm not good at it. Come on. So that's my answer to yoga for weightlifting and strength training. If you have any questions, tweet at me at SYATT Fitness. And that's it. It's day 9. Love you. Have a good one.